We're now coming into our whole planks facing front series, which there are so many different variations that we'll teach you a few of the main ones here. And they are working on similar things as you would do with planks on the floor. So a lot of anterior body strength, hip flexors, deep core, deep trunk stabilizers, obviously some shoulder stability and scapular stability as well, upper body strength. This is really full body integration at its finest. We've got a lot of different plank variations we can work with and lots of spring variations we can work with. So lighter springs are going to be more challenging on the core and people's ability just to maintain the carriage in its position. While heavier springs, you're giving the posterior chain, so glutes, hamstrings, back stabilizers, more tension to push into, but there's a fine balance, right? So we don't want to have so much spring tension that people feel like they're going to catapult forward, but also not so little that they feel like they can't find that strong plank position. So anywhere from one yellow up to maybe a red and a blue or a green for certain variations could be appropriate, just depending on which exercise you're doing and what's your purpose. To start our setup, we'll come up into a plank on the carriage. So hands plant on to the foot bar and feet walk back, heels all the way to the shoulder blocks for our traditional plank here. So we've got pubic bone drawing to nose, tailbone is lengthening out, collarbones are open. Couple of things we want to watch out for here is that A, we're not seeing that major lower back extension where the belly's hanging to the floor and we're just kind of sinking into the shoulders. If you're seeing that, just cue people to tuck the tail and lift the hips a little bit higher. And we want to make sure people are using their legs, so really put some weight back into the feet, reaching the heels into the shoulder blocks. And secondly, making sure we're not going too far in the opposite direction, doming the chest up to the sky. So lengthening out through the chest, collarbones wide, but tail tucked. Once we're up in that plank position, one of the exercises we could start with is long stretch, where we're just staying in this nice long diagonal line, pushing back just a few inches through the arms and shoulders and pulling the carriage back in. So this one's really looking at upper extremity stability and movement, right? Strength. But you'd be surprised at how much the core has to tap on as you push those arms farther out from underneath you. So this is a way that we can add challenge to trunk stability and upper body stability. Next, we come into our inverted V variation, also known as pikes frequently. So this one we can still do with the heels back on the shoulder blocks, right? You can pull the carriage forward, lifting the hips in the air, and then pushing back out. However, I prefer to teach this one with the feet a little bit farther forward so that we then have more space to move into hip flexion. We're just looking for that flat back and a hinge at the hip. So one thing that you'll see people do here is they're kind of leaning back and pulling forward or shifting forward and then pulling up. And really the only thing moving here is that hip hinge. Everything else just kind of follows along. A couple of other things that we can do here is start to twist the legs coming into any of those other variations in this little bit of a rotation so that we're adding some more obliques. So we can do our hip hinge, inverted V pikes. We can do kind of a jackrabbit variation with the rotation. Really any of those variations, including long stretch here, just with the feet rotated to one side, is a nice way to add some variation. Lastly, we can do an arabesque here. So coming back to heels against the shoulder blocks, we take the top foot to cross over the bottom foot. You're in that plank position, and as you pull the carriage into a pike, the top leg's going to go to the sky. So we pull up, lift, and drop. Up, lift, and drop.